Hey, everybody, this is Dan with Pain Free You, and I have the pleasure today of speaking with Ben Mahoney from Iowa. Ben was gracious enough to volunteer to tell his story. And what he told me before I started recording, he says, he realized if he ever got better, he was going to do what he could to pay it forward and share with other people and hopefully help somebody else by sharing his story. So, Ben, pleasure to meet you, man. I really appreciate this.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
if you would, why don't you take us on a little journey? Kind of let us know what happened, what you went through, and where you ended up. So,
Well, I guess I kind of have to start it from before I got sick with COVID.
mhm.
I was just working at a super stressful job. I had just broken up with a long-term partner of mine. I moved back in with my parents, moved back to my hometown, was working long hours. I'm a welder, so just hot, stressful. Had a boss that I did not really get along with, and just stress, working out 2 to 3 hours a day, drinking more caffeine than I should have been, 700 milligrams of caffeine a day. Just putting my body through so much stress. And at the time, I didn't, to me, it was just normal. That's just how I lived my life. And I didn't think I was very stressed. And
Right.
my mom booked a family vacation to Minnesota to a lake house. And I thought, finally, just a little relief. And went up there, and the whole family ended up getting COVID. And I had already had it 2 times prior to that, so it was no big deal to me, just a light cold, virus.
Mhm.
And lasted about 5 days, and I was ready to go back to work. Uh, when went out that Saturday, and went out to sushi with my girlfriend for her birthday for her family. We get to the city, and we get out of the car and we start walking, and I couldn't remember where we were and why we were there. My brain just I had no recollection of us driving there. I couldn't remember what we were doing. And then everything just kind of, my vision tunneled, and I was like, oh, I'm getting anxious. Obviously I'm getting anxious, and my body just starts trembling. And then I was like, I'm just having a panic attack, but why do I not know where I'm at and why I'm here?
That's scary.
Scary. So I said, I need to go home. We cancel our birthday dinner. We drive back to the town I'm from, and the whole way back, I'm just my brain felt like it was melting. I have no other way to describe it, but just felt like my brain was like melting. I'm slurring my speech. I can't talk. I'm panicking. I'm telling her I need to go to the ER. I don't know what's going on.
Sure.
Go to the ER. Everything's fine. All my vitals are fine. I'm telling them what is going on. There's something wrong with me. They didn't want to listen to me. They're doing the blood work. They're doing all this. I go home, and the next week was just brain fog. I forget my girlfriend's name. I can't remember how to weld. I've been a welder for 12 years, and I can't remember how to do my job. Reading tape measure. I can't do anything. I forget what street I live on. I just
Wow.
basic things I could not. And the entire time, when you're forgetting things like that, you spiral. You're
Who wouldn't?
spiraling
Yeah.
fear. And so I hop on Doctor Google, and I had COVID. What is going on? Are people having problems with COVID? And I fell down that rabbit hole of
Sure.
they don't know what it is. Yeah, the people are experiencing this. It's gonna last 18 months, this, that, and I'm just terrified. The fear, just so I thought, okay, this is just one of those things I'm just gonna have to get through. Well, that week after, it was brain fog, but then my heart would palpitate 100 times in a day. Uh, and I had been somebody that had struggled with panic disorder for 3 years, a couple years prior to this, and I beat that. Got to the point where I couldn't even leave my house. I would have so many panic attacks, but I overcame that, and so I knew the symptoms of anxiety.
Mhm.
Um, so after that, it was brain fog. My heart was palpitating. Just memory loss. And the more that went on, the more I'm Googling, what can I do? I'm going to the ER at least once a week. Um, and after a while, of getting perfect test results, it's like, well, all they want to do is put you on, anxiety medications.
Right.
And that was not something that I was willing to do. Um, so I thought, well, if that's all they can offer me, obviously the medical system is not, it has nothing else to offer me. So I started going to a holistic chiropractor. He tells me I have Epstein-Barr virus, and that he's cleared it from my system or something, by doing some sort of pressure points on me, doing muscle tests, and then I come back a week later and I say, hey man, I'm still can't remember anything. Um, he says, well, you're just depressed. You don't want to work. You're just depressed. And I said, dude, you don't know anything about me.
Yeah, blame the person who doesn't feel well.
Right. And I said, yeah, I'm depressed because I don't know what's going on with me. And this is after 2 months of
Right.
not being able to work. Every time I work out, the symptoms just explode. I mean, I can't get out of bed for 2 or 3 days. I can't remember how to use my phone, just basic things, and those symptoms all spiraled into, there was a point where, like I said, I used to work out 2, 3 hours a day, but there was a point where I wasn't working out and my lower back and my legs hurt so bad I could not get out of bed. And I have, a high pain tolerance, and I'm thinking, what is going on? Like, why is my body doing this? And I felt the fear backing me into a corner where I'm not
Mhm.
living my life anymore. Everybody's saying to pace, do all these things, and I'm pacing, and I just felt my life becoming so narrowed down, and I just, like I said, I felt backed into a corner, and I wasn't going to let fear just dictate my life. And I eventually found videos like your success stories where, people had recovered and they were going through the same things that I was going through. And I've always been, I've always thought the mind could do way more than we even know. So people are saying, it's a mind body thing. I said, well, if it is, there's no negative to, you know, calming yourself down ever.
I say that all the time. I said there's literally zero downside to teaching your brain that you're okay and remaining calm.
That's right.
The whole
And
system works better when you are calm and feeling safe. If you're panicked and terrified, the brain is just firing off sound, false alarms all over the place. So,
exactly. And if you look at, the parasympathetic nervous system, and um if you're in fight or flight, your body's not healing. It's just doing everything it can to stay alive. So even if you are, at the time I was like, COVID's still in my system. Well, being in fight or flight, you
yeah,
know, it's not healing. Even if COVID was still in my system and I'm in fight or flight, it's not healing. So I need to calm down anyways. So
no
I'm
downside.
no downside. I guess what really helped me was I'm a visual person. So a person on a different channel, his name was what was his name? Anyways, he talks about the polyvagal theory, where it shows fight or flight, and then it's a ladder, going up into the freeze response.
Mhm.
And most people that live their life in fight or flight, like I had been, I mean, you're right at that tipping point where it's just you're doing this all day in between fight or flight and the freeze response. And something like COVID where it just wreaks havoc on you, you just get stuck, where it's just like, I need to keep you safe. Your nervous system, I need to keep you safe. So I'm going to do whatever I can to keep you shut down to where you can't hurt.
And all this happened as a result of, like you said, a breakup, moving back home to your hometown. There's a whole series of emotions surrounding that kind of stuff. And on top of that, then getting COVID for yet another time, family holiday. And all of a sudden, like you said, you were probably just hit that tipping point, like the straw that broke the camel's back that just kind of put you over the edge. And the brain was like, there's a lot of dangerous stuff going on. Symptoms start, but then correct me if I'm wrong, but at that point, once the symptoms started and they were fairly severe up front, it snowballs. The fear just grows bigger and bigger and bigger. It just
Right. It
right.
just, and I mean, it just perpetuates itself because here's the symptom. I'm afraid of it. The fear is causing the symptom.
So here's a point I just want to make for anybody watching. Um, Once you get that deep into it, it almost doesn't matter what the circumstances were that started it all, because we can't go back and change or fix any of that. But once you're in that fear loop, it can grow and get bigger and bigger. And
Yeah.
so don't spend a lot of time going back and going, well, it was these three things, and then that thing tipped it over. So now what do I have to do to fix that or deal with those emotions or deal with that trauma or relationship stuff? No, you don't have to look back.
No.
Right. And I'll assume that you didn't have to look back to fix your situation and get better. You had to just recognize what was going on. So back to the mind body concept. I keep on jumping in here, but it's a great
No, it's
example
perfect.
of how this stuff works. So go ahead, keep going.
And I think me personally, to get out of the symptoms, it's knowledge, knowing, but then you have to have the belief that this is right. And then once they start going down, it kind of spirals the other way. It's once
Confident.
you find the real knowledge of what's going on, you have the knowledge, but if you don't believe it, it's one, that's the next step is you have to believe it. And then after that, once it starts spiraling in the other direction, it's like, oh, okay, great, perfect. So I mean, to get out of the symptoms, I don't think it's necessary to look at all of that. But for me personally, to stay out of going back to that ever again, I had to address my people pleasing tendencies, um, overworking, zero self love, not listening to myself, but those things are all for later, I mean,
Right.
to get out of the actual, what I would call like the freeze response and fight or flight, it's just safety, it's just, I had to tell myself I'm safe. It's always safety, knowledge, belief in the safety, and those things can come later, because I don't ever want to end up at this point again. But if I do, you have the knowledge, you have the understanding, the
Yep.
tools are there. You don't worry about problems once you have the tools, and you know how to fix it.
Exactly. And that's a great point because people are always like, well, what if it happens again?
Once you feel that,
You
you
know what
won't
it
ever worry
is.
about it.
You know
Right.
what it is, and you know what to do about it. So why worry?
Exactly.
You won't fall into that trap again. You won't fall into that fear. Now, don't get me wrong. Not knowing where you were and how you got there, fairly significant event compared to
Right.
somebody who's like, I felt a tweak in my back. A little bit different, not comparing anybody, uh,
Right.
but you'll even know, even in an acute onset of a very severe symptom, you'll be like, I know what that is. And you'll have the
Exactly.
tools, as you said. So I'll let you keep going. I hate to interrupt you, but these
No.
are such great points.
No. Yeah. And I was stuck in that fear though for a while too. Of
Sure.
when I was midway out of it, and it's like, oh, what if it comes back? What if it comes back? Well, you even saying what if it comes back means you're better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
It also still means that the fear is still lingering.
right.
How did you get over that? what realization did you have that actually you came to logically understand and accept that, okay, I don't have to worry if it comes back because I'll know what it is? Is that kind of where you got through the what if it comes back fear?
I just knew once I had all of the knowledge as far as what it was, what it is, what's happening, and I just I don't know, the fear just dissipated because it just if you know how to fix something one time, you only get better at fixing it the second time. I mean, if your shower head breaks and you replace your shower head the first time, it's like, oh, what am I doing here? The second time, you already know. It's
Yeah,
and it
great.
doesn't matter if the symptoms, brain fog, back pain, heart palpitations, POTS. I probably had 30, 40 symptoms
Wow.
within the 6 months before I found channels like yours. But they just start checking off. I mean, it's the ones that fear you the most are the ones that stay around the longest. And mine was brain fog because it was the first one. And when you can't drive a car, you can't remember your partner's name, you can't remember something you've done for 12 years. I mean, that was terrifying. I couldn't even formulate sentences. I couldn't have a conversation. I mean, I thought that COVID had gone into my brain and just did permanent damage to my brain. And I said, this isn't the quality of life worth living. And, it got to the dark place where it's like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And if this continues to go on, I will not be here. And it
Yep.
was once I got to that point that I found channels like yours, and it couldn't have come at a better time. And I just told myself, when and if I get out of this, I will help as many people as possible, because feeling, I felt alone. Nobody wanted to listen to me. Nobody knew what was going on with me. I just felt lost, and alone and just terrified, and
Right.
just finding channels like yours where, you had 2 long COVID videos. I thought, I'm not crazy,
Oh, you're
you
not.
know,
And it's
and I
just
just,
I too. I mean, there's others in other channels and lots of people sharing that the mind body approach is
exactly.
absolutely working for a lot of people with quote unquote long COVID. I think long COVID, I don't think they scientifically know what's causing it. Um, but I do believe that with 3 years worth of COVID fear on the media everywhere, friends, family, grocery store, fear, fear, fear. I believe absolutely much of this long COVID is a perceived danger response to getting COVID or getting it a second time or a third time. And I've got COVID, so I've got to isolate. I've got to miss this event or that event. I can't go to work. And like it's just this massive dose of fear. So why isn't it possible that much, if not, I won't say all, much of long COVID is a fear response?
Right.
Subconscious for many, because like you said, it wasn't a big deal. It was pretty mild. You had some cold-like symptoms. You tested positive. You weren't too worried about it. But it was that on top of some of the other things that led to it, the
Right.
breakup and moving back home. And nobody likes moving back home, especially if you're
Right.
over 20 something.
Right.
And so, I had to move back home in my 40s. That wasn't cool. Divorced, didn't know where I was going. It was only lasted 5 months, but it was still very humbling and not something I
Right.
was really happy about doing. So anyway, I just really wanted to kind of point out for anybody watching this, I truly believe what's being called long COVID is a perceived danger response, aka TMS, or mind body. So
Absolutely. And if you go to the doctors, and, I've heard people say, if you don't have structural damage that they can tell, I mean,
yeah,
this is what it is, and I'll be bold enough to say that, like, if even if they can see something, this these issues with, being in fight or flight or being stuck in the freeze response, they can still cause things that they can see on testing too. Even if they test your mitochondria and the energy levels are bad or what, this is still probably it. I mean,
But in that example that you just gave, are the things that they're finding in these laboratory testing results, are they the cause or are they the result
that's what I mean.
of a terrified brain?
That's what I mean.
Well, people will be like, but I have a blood test, but I have an imaging study, I have this, and that. Like I was
Exactly.
jacked up and crooked. People have like muscle tension, muscle spasms. They're like the muscles are the problem. No,
Yes,
they're
sir.
they're the result of the
Right.
problem, which is a scared, terrified brain. I was
No,
crooked for a lot of
that's exactly
years,
what I'm saying. It's
but
I
it was
mean,
never the muscles.
right, right. And that's
So,
what I mean. These can still the symptoms you're having that do show up on testing, it still could be this because it your body just changes. I mean,
yeah,
it's everything is set up to keep you alive and your body's working perfectly. And once I had that mindset, before I was like, why is my nervous system attacking me? Why are you doing this to me? I was upset. I was quit
angry.
doing this to me.
Yeah,
And I kind of started kind of what helped me was I kind of started seeing my nervous system as like a dog that had been abused for so long that now you know it's it's like, hey, I need to keep you where you're at. I'm biting back. You're not going out. You're not going to work. I'm going to do everything I can to keep you safe. And how I saw the symptoms was like a wounded dog. I just, hey, we're okay. It's okay. It's okay. And I had to build that trust back that we're fine. You're safe. You don't have to bite back at me every time I do something that makes you a little afraid. It's we're safe. You can go work out. You can go back to work. Um, that's how I started viewing it was, everything is set up to keep me alive and me safe. And my nervous system was doing everything it could
yeah,
to keep me safe from this perceived fear in my subconscious of, you know,
everything.
whatever. Yeah, everything.
Yeah, and I like to believe that, well, not believe, I know it for sure that this nervous system that's protecting you, the control center for that, which is the main part of the nervous system, is the brain.
Absolutely.
Right. So I believe, and I've said it numerous times, I don't think your nervous system is broken. I don't think your brain is broken. They're both working flawlessly, but they are operating on misinformation and fear.
Absolutely.
And when you correct the misinformation with the knowledge that you were talking about in the beginning, like when you really get that truth of what's going on and you can buy into it,
Yep.
um, now you're correcting that misinformation, which lowers the fear, which means now all of a sudden the whole system can regulate. I did want to make a point. You were talking about how being in this fight or flight for so long, the long COVID, whatever it may be. Jake, the success story we did, spoke about how his liver enzymes were all jacked up.
Exactly.
And, people were like, well, maybe that's a problem. And what he proved is by focusing on this mind body work and teaching his brain he was safe, the liver enzymes returned to normal
Right.
over time. And so if you're looking at any lab results, test results, or anything like that and saying there is the problem, it's very likely that's the result of the problem, which is a terrified brain. So,
Exactly. And I mean, I think that's what a lot of people, I mean, I even found myself doing was like, if people didn't have the same symptoms as me, I did not want to hear it.
doesn't apply.
Doesn't apply. And when I can't remember who said it, but the guy said, if you left a faucet on in your house and it started flowing over the sink and it's,
That was
you
me.
know, yeah, and it's dripping everywhere, you don't put buckets under it and you're not worried about all these symptoms. You have to go and shut it off
Yeah.
at the source. And most people are thinking if yours is leaking off of the right side of the sink and not the left side of the sink, then it's not the same thing. Well, it can be any number of symptoms. I mean, it can show up in any way, and it's all still the same faucet. It's
Well, it's, everybody's like their symptoms different than mine, so their story doesn't apply. Or until I can find somebody with the identical set of symptoms, then I can't believe that this is what's going on.
right.
But I've said numerous times that the symptoms don't matter because it doesn't matter how yours show up versus somebody else versus somebody else. They're all caused by the same thing, which is a
Exactly.
brain perceiving danger.
And
So,
it'll give you any number of symptoms until it finds the one that you're so afraid of that it, shuts you down. I mean,
yeah, I don't
it,
know
to
that
me,
there's
it's
that
nothing
much
else.
motivation behind the symptoms. I don't think there's a desire for the brain to go, we got to shut them down. I think it's all safety. So if shutting you down means here's a boatload of fatigue, stay in bed, or here's a boatload of brain fog, so you can't go to work, you can't leave the house, you can't drive. The underlying current is you're safer at home. There's a lot
Right.
of bad stuff going on, so you're safer at home. But I don't think the brain is actually going into a conference room, holding a meeting, and going, "Hey boys, what should we do here? I don't know. How about a little brain fog? How about a little fatigue? How about some back pain? Like I don't think it's that contrived by the brain. I think it's purely when the brain perceives danger, it creates a symptom. Um, Maybe there is some intelligence behind it as far as what type of symptom. I think for pain syndromes, the pain often reflects the perceived danger. So in my case, I had lower back pain for 13 years,
Right.
sciatica. So if my brain is perceiving danger, it kind of remembers to go back to my lower back because I've had that probably half a dozen times in the past 14 years. That's just what it is. And oftentimes it has to do with me bending or moving. And my brain's like, whoa, here's a little tweak to remind you to be careful. Um, I think different symptoms show up for different reasons. I think a lot of this, what Dr. Sarno called symptom imperative, comes from us doing a really good job of saying that symptom's not dangerous. There's nothing wrong there. And the brain goes, okay, I'll turn that one off. But
That's what I was saying.
it's
Yeah,
still
that's what
hyper vigilant and it's always on the lookout for danger. So if it sees something dangerous over there, it might turn on a new symptom. You know what I mean? And so it can add symptoms, it can replace symptoms, they can swap, they can go from one side of the body to another, they can stay on both sides. There's no real logic, and I will encourage everybody to stop trying to figure it out. You don't need to. You can
absolutely.
observe it with fascination, curiosity, and just know there's one core issue. This brain is fearful, it's highly alert, highly vigilant, and it's perceiving incorrectly danger in a whole bunch of places. And it's our job to go, I know the truth, I know what's going on. Therefore, I'm not afraid because I know that this whole thing will settle down once I settle down, right? It kind of sounds like your journey a bit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, what I was really saying was it was the ones I was the most fearful of that uh were the ones that were keeping me, stuck. The new ones would show up and I'd say, I'm not afraid of that, and that they'd shut off
For
within an hour.
sure.
But I was so afraid of this brain fog one that that's what stayed most persistent, was because that was the one that would always shut me down. I would always be afraid of it. Uh,
But it was the most significant in its consequence. Like
right,
having that level of brain fog literally shut down your life.
right,
Whereas having some back pain, you're like, well, I can still go make lunch, right? I can still do this, and that. So the consequence of some back pain was a lot less significant than the intensity of the brain fog that you experienced in the beginning and through much of it.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. The most fear is usually the symptom that takes the longest to overcome.
Yes, sir.
Brilliant. Anything else you wanted to share on this? How about
I just
how about words of advice for anybody who's going through this stuff and they're looking at that long COVID thing and they're buying into the fact that I'm still sick a year later, 2 years later? Um, any advice for them or anybody with any type of symptom or perceived diagnosis?
Just don't give up, because it's checking out is never a great option. And once you get it, I mean, you get it, and you just have to believe. And there's no downside of calming down ever. Um, I would just say don't give up, because it just, to me, I was 6 months into it before I found any sort of hope. But for that first 6 months, I thought, I've been going through this for 6 months. This is so long. It's so terrible. And then, you know, you see people going through it for 3 years and getting better within 3 months. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I've only been going through this for 6 months. I mean, the time doesn't matter, because,
Nope.
you know, the journey in, to me, never takes as long as the journey out. I got healed. It's not like walking into a forest for 20 miles and you have to turn around and walk another 20 miles. There's like a left shortcut over here.
Over to the highway. Yeah.
Right. And it's just, in my head, I was like, 6 months, that's nothing compared to these people. The time doesn't matter. There's people on the channel that have 20 years of something, and in 3 months they could be better. And it's not a linear path. And
Correct.
don't try to time like, oh, I'm going to be better in 2 months, I'm going to be better in 3 months. Just know that it will be quicker than the journey in. I fully, wholeheartedly believe that.
Yeah, I
So
try to emphasize that a lot in my channel and in my group coaching and everything else. It's like, it doesn't matter how long you've been dealing with this, because once you understand what's going on, you accept that, and that becomes your dominant thought, that I'm actually okay. I
yep.
talk about it going from the intellectual knowledge, which is easy to get, but it takes a little while to get it from here to the deep knowing, like, holy crap, I'm actually okay.
Yes,
Right?
sir.
It's that deep knowing that allows you to go, oh, now that I know that, there's not a lot to do. It's just making sure I stay on the knowing and not coming back up here to overthink it again.
Yes, sir.
So I think
Absolutely.
it's nothing to
That's
fear,
the
nothing to fix. Go ahead.
that's the difference between, I mean, that was what I was talking about. Step one was the knowledge, and step two is the belief.
Yep.
And the quicker you can make that, the quicker you're out of it. I mean,
So if I may, I want to bridge the gap between knowledge and belief, because a lot of people are like, it hurts so bad. How can I believe that this? So yes, the knowledge is step number one in the foundation. You have to understand how this thing works, how this human body, the brain, the nervous system, how pain or other symptoms work, the perception of danger is driving it all. That's step one. Getting to belief requires a decision.
Yep.
A decision to go, this makes sense. And fortunately, there are assessments that will help anybody determine, are my symptoms behaving like brain created symptoms by brain perceiving danger, or are they really disease or illness or structural based problems? And there are assessments. So go to the getting started page on my website, painfreeyou.com/start. There's assessments. And if it shows that it's mind body, TMS, perceived danger, that's what it is.
Right.
And then you have to make a decision to go, all right, I have the knowledge, it makes sense. And now I've done the assessments, and I've even looked at my own experience, and I can probably, if I'm looking carefully, I can find examples where if I were truly sick or broken, my experience wouldn't make sense. So we look for that evidence in our own personal experience combined with the assessments. I will encourage you that the belief comes from making a decision to say, this is it, and I accept that this is it. And you naturally did that, and you ended up with the decision creating the belief. And once you had that belief and the knowledge, it got so much easier from there.
Right.
Could you imagine what would happen if somebody told you this is mind body, and journal and meditate, and you'll get better, but they don't have the knowledge or the belief that that applies to them?
Right.
I don't care how well you journal and meditate and connect the dots emotionally, you're not going to get there because
Right.
your fear is still going to be up here.
Right. Because I was doing all those things at the beginning, anyways. That's just part of my daily practice,
Yeah.
anyways. And it was not helping because the knowledge was not there. I mean, and I hope that this video just adds to the belief. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Because you
just want to
came
help
back
somebody.
from the brink of not being able to intellectually function,
Right. Yeah, I
which,
couldn't even formulate a sentence.
yeah. And I've spoken to a lot of people, and I believe that's a fairly significant thing. I mean, people talk about brain fog, but yeah, I mean, yours would lead me to believe I better get an MRI of my head,
And I did.
make sure that there's no tumors, aneurysms, cancers. Like, is there anything going on up there that would turn my brain off? Now, you were blessed. You ruled out the life-threatening stuff,
Yes,
and
sir.
you didn't quit, and you kept on searching and looking. And, fortunately, your mind was open to the idea that said, all right, modern medicine doesn't have the solution for me. I'm going to look elsewhere.
Yes, sir.
And even in that elsewhere, you went down some paths that maybe weren't perfect, because there's
Right.
lots of naturopaths, holistic doctors, and all sorts of things that all get into the gut biome and the, you know, microbiology, blood testing, nutrient deficiencies, heavy metals, and really start, and they create a whole nother level of fear,
Right.
as opposed to saying, well, I wasn't really sick before this. So how could it be all of these nutrient deficiencies and all those blood tests if I was good before? I didn't crash. So something else was going on. So you're brilliant in just pursuing a solution, finding some answers online, which is amazing. You can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars with doctors and 20 ER appointments, but in some cases the YouTube videos will point you in the right direction. And so that was brilliant. Any other words of advice or pieces of the story you'd like to share?
I just think everybody's, journey is different. I had 200 bottles of vitamins. I did the diets. I had an MRI. I mean, I did everything everybody told me to do and nothing worked, but I'm somebody that has to do it myself, to find out it doesn't work. But I just hope somebody is a little less stubborn than I am and just, you know,
Takes a shortcut.
right, can just, save all the money from the doctors and save all the money from the supplements and the diets and the, going to all these naturopaths and just trust yourself and just know that your body is just a healing machine. And I mean,
Yeah.
it just everything it's doing is to keep you safe. And once you know that, I mean, it's your best friend. It's not,
Mhm.
not trying to do anything to hurt you. It's doing the exact opposite. And if you just trust yourself and know that everything's okay, the quicker you're going to get out of it. So
Beautiful. That's a great way to wrap it up. Unless you got anything else,
that's
uh,
all I got.
really pleased with how this conversation went. You have made some really great points, which means you have internalized the deep knowing, the knowledge, because you get it,
Absolutely.
and you get it to the point where you can explain it and explain it well. So that's going to carry you forward. So should you ever have any type of symptom, it's almost like unless it's like feels life threatening, like you can't breathe or you're, chest pain. Yeah, go to the ER. But
So,
even if something shows up, your deep understanding of this is going to go, this feels familiar.
right.
And I know what to do with this, which
Right.
is
You ain't tricking
brilliant.
me.
Yeah, it's not even a tricking. It's just like, well, I know what it is, so I'm not going to fall into the fear trap.
Absolutely.
And our job is always teach the brain that we're already okay. You're
Always.
right. The brain, the body, its natural state is health.
Absolutely.
There's a great quote by, I think, one of the original chiropractors, BJ Palmer, that said, nature needs no help, just no interference.
Absolutely.
And I think so much of what is offered by the medical system, by even some of the TMS world and the naturopaths and the supplements and the diets and all that, I think a lot of that's interference. because it just keeps you in that fight or flight, in that fear loop, thinking I haven't figured out how to fix myself perfectly yet. So maybe I need a different supplement or a different diet, or I need to eliminate that food or this food. And nobody can calm down if they're in that state of always looking for the perfect magic key that's going to turn the lock.
Yep.
I think when we feel safe, the brain starts shutting off all of these false alarms.
You
And
gotta get out of the way.
yeah, get out of the way and trust your brain, trust your body. But not only that, but teach the brain that all those fearful thoughts, you don't have to believe them.
Absolutely. You are
So
not your thoughts.
you're not your thoughts. And the ones that are saying, but what if this? What if that? What if the doctor missed? You don't have to listen to them. You can let them
No,
go and you can say, shh, we're not thinking about that again. We've been down that path. So it's our job with our conscious brain to teach the subconscious, which is the worry wart in the background, sounding the what if this happened? What if that? It's our job to use our conscious brain to teach the subconscious that we're okay. When the subconscious buys that message, everything gets better.
absolutely.
Brilliant, brilliant. Love this conversation. Um, Unless you got anything else, we're going to wrap it up.
I'll just be around on this video, if anybody wants to comment or anything, and I
Yeah,
can help
watch
in
the
any
YouTube.
way.
Yeah, watch the YouTube channel, folks. And if you want to just say, thanks or have a question for Ben, leave a YouTube comment and he'll probably be jumping in there and probably answering some questions. Um,
Absolutely.
I really appreciate you doing that. That's really powerful when the person in the success story is willing to engage with other people. So I
Yes.
appreciate that. And if I can ever do anything for you, you know
Hey,
where to find me.
you've done enough. Thank you so
No,
much
I
for
get it.
everything you do.
I get it, but I'm just making the offer. I mean, not just
You're
for
the
you,
best.
everybody. I mean, people know they know where to find me. Watch the daily videos. If you want some direct help, direct conversations with me, I got a group program where I run 16 group sessions a month, which is a lot of group time that if you want some help, come find me.
You're the
So,
man.
Ben, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
take care of yourself.
Yes, sir. You too.
See you around.